Hey, we're back. Thanks. We had a bit of a hiatus because I took a trip.
Welcome, welcome.
Hey, did you take a trip too? I took a trip.
I took a little trip. My trip was domestic though. I just went to Minneapolis. I went up there to do some training, but yeah, it was nothing compared to yours. You were
Oh, it's true. I was at the Scottish Summit and here with my bad accent that I brought back. I brought back, didn't fash about it. I brought back a terrible Scottish accent. I didn't have the haggis, but I had lots of Glasgow. If there's a place I'm going to visit, truthfully, all that fun aside, if there's a place I'll probably wouldn't mind living in, is Glasgow. Actually, I was
really
such a nice place. It's not in your face touristy, but it has stuff that is freaking interesting to have to look at and watch and see and partake in. Right, the food was a city world class. A city,
right.
it's a world class city. It's maybe quieter than we're used to in Chicago, New York, and all that good stuff. But the transportation, of course, is pretty much top. Oh yeah, I was talking about that just before we started the call. We were talking about my transportation woes. This is the case where, like, you have to be. If we're wondering about where the cloud really pays off, if we can imagine how we used to be when we had paper tickets and going through all that places. Now, none of that stuff would help very much. This allowed people to, with paper and everything else, easy to forge, to do all kinds of things that are out there. Going to England was this quick. It's like basically almost traveling in the United States, with the exception is that there's security somewhere in there, but the security is so, let's say, blended in. It doesn't feel like over here when you go through security. You go through security over here and they block you. They block you for good. They're
Right.
like checking everything. They're going through all that stuff, and they seem to be doing it manually, is what it feels like over here. So how does it work over there? All right. So I come over there, and the first time you're going through, you put your passport in one of those readers, and then and they tell you while you're doing it, you have to be looking up. Looking up where? It's very subtle, but like there's cameras. There's one, two, three, four, five, six, a whole bunch of cameras looking at you from all angles. Not one.
Right.
They tell you take off your hat, take off your glasses, put them back, put it on. Okay, stay there a little bit, and they'll give you clues for a while. But otherwise, it'll tell you this is what you got to do. The prompts will do it. If sometimes some people are like they don't understand because they're they're how do we say it, shell shocked that the technology is asking them questions and you're not sure what's going on. Hey, it just told me to take off my glasses. Well, number one, how did it know I had glasses?
Glasses on. Yes,
And
exactly.
number two, what difference does it make? I have glasses on my passport. I said, yeah, but are those the same glasses when you got your passport picture? No, actually. How did it know that? If it was and they explained to me later, by the way, if you were wearing exactly the same glasses as your passport picture, it would not have asked you to take off your glasses. The AI now will actually say, well, this is what you look like if you had a beard. Because what if I grew a beard, right? I'd be like,
Yeah,
I'd be
exactly.
wiped out, right, by the AI. No, it actually does in the background, in cloud speed, at cloud speed, figuring out all the combinations of Ralph, hat off, hat on, glasses, this kind of glasses, like rim glass, whatever, and gets all this stuff. Once I did it once, when I go through any checkpoint now in the UK of any kind, that's it. I'm done. It never asks for this again. It may say, put in your ticket, right? Look over here. And if it doesn't like it, they might come see your passport, or they might
Right.
say, passport again, to make sure that you even have it on you. Because if you don't have it on you, that's the first MFA. They say, you're probably not who the person you think you are, right? Or you look like the person a little bit, but there's some problem. You did a mask or whatever.
When you said it asked you, you mean a person though, right? Because we have people.
No,
You know,
no, no.
when I
It's
flew,
there's
when I flew
there's there's screens, and then an actual voice comes out. It's the computer voice, but it's the British version of Siri or whatever, saying, "Please remove your glasses, so we can have a better view of your identity." It's sort of like that, but it's speaking to you, and it's speaking clearly.
right,
Not a disjointed speak your time. It's not your Stephen Hawking voice coming at you over here. It is
yeah,
clean, like you're going through, and so well, the whole point though that made this work, especially because there's the paper, right? Is
right,
it's in your app. So here was the thing. So to check in now, if everyone doesn't know this already, you open up your phone for like American Airlines or British Airways or whatever, and you go in your app and you check in from there, and then you get those like QR codes which you put on now
on the security to go through, you really don't need a paper ticket. This is how you went through. They figured this out. It's like, what's the point of getting code and they tell you to print it out? It's like, hey, couldn't you just have looked at it in the phone?
Right.
Someone a while back said, yeah, you're right. Make it QR code. And by the way, so everything's QR code going across the board. So here I am going the QR code. We're going to put it in. All right. We're checking now. We're going in. The app in there says when you're any kind of updates, it shows up on the app, your gate change, you're late, whatever, all of that takes care of it for you. All right. So I'm going through the systems, asking for the phone once in a while, but for the most part, no, it doesn't even care. But once it knows who you are, it lets you walk. It's like, well, when I come back to the States, I got to go through all these lines, got to go through customs, I got to talk to people and everything else. This one's like, you have something to declare? No, go to this line, straight through. Well, what if I said, what if I lied? What if I should have declared something and I didn't? Would they have caught me or anything else? Well, let's just say there's, like I said about the cameras, they're looking at everything everywhere. They profiled the hell out of me. Whatever AI is going on has pretty much said, well, Ralph probably should go to customs. There will be a page that says, blah, 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 please go to this attention. Or here's a great thing. I came off international, right?
Yeah.
Now I have to go to a different terminal to go to my next flight. But even if it was in the same terminal, I had to essentially get out of my international view, down some halls, and now I'm ready to go to a local domestic trip. And it's like there was no gates or anything else that seemed to stop anything. But once I went through a certain area, you can't exactly come back. All right, fine and well. All right, so I went through that and everything else. But actually, when I say gates, it's only when you're ready to go to the local does it now ask you, okay, now you're going to go to the new place. All right, now do it. Now you're going to go again. Just go over here and put in your ticket. And so I was doing that in this particular case. My story for this one, I did that. Nope, sorry, it's not working. Nope, you're not permitted. You need to talk to someone. Please talk to someone. So I said, why won't it let me go in? Because your plane was late. I said, well, yeah, I knew it was late, but we were an hour late leaving, but he did really well. We got in within 10 minutes, but it took about 40 minutes or more to park at the gate because for whatever reason, American wasn't prepared for me to get in there. So by the time I went from all the terminal and did all the walking and everything else, again, nobody got in my way for anything. Imagine if I had to go get bags and go through anything. I just was going straight. I didn't know I had to run that fast. For that matter, I couldn't. I had to get in the bus. I had to wait for the bus, get on the bus, wait for the bus, put the thing on me to get to the other terminal. So by the time I got there, it was like there's a 40-minute window where you have to get in by this time or the AI says no way. And so I put it in. Nope, you're 5 minutes late. Literally, not 5 minutes. That was it. So I could have potentially run somewhere. Would it have made a difference? I don't know. I wasn't quite told that's exact. I didn't know it was 40 minutes. Over here, by the way, in the States, it's 20 minutes or 30 minutes for a window. But then you don't usually know that. They tell you at the gate, no, you can't. They'll still let you in security. Over there, you can't even get past security because the AI stops. Right. Gotcha. So we asked, can you make an exception? It's just 10. It's only like I'm only like 5 minutes. We can't. We don't have the power. The AI basically says, no way, not even anyone with any kind of powers over there can like make any exception to open anything. Otherwise, the alarms will go off, period. So I had to, unfortunately, go over to American and worked it out. Poor American had only one person working the whole scene, and they were dealing with way more irate customers and everything else. And the British Airways folks, they're fully massively staffed. So that was having trouble. I went to them and I showed them my info. Okay, here's what to do. The person literally took the time to walk with me to the other side and said, here's what you do. And what did they do? They took out their phone, went, let's put out their phone, and they did all this stuff. They transacted all through the cloud on their phones to give stuff. And that's how they got around any issues that blocked. Oh, I can't find him on the thing. Well, here. And it's like the only, you know what slowed me down is that because talking to a physical person when it was still required in the case of the American stuff, was the blocker. For all I know, I could have gotten an earlier flight to Scotland, updated flight. It took me 9 hours before I got another flight because that was all that was available. But once that happened, everything else was smooth sailing all the way through. Now, take this. Coming back, remember there's a requirement now to the United States, or at least there was until last Sunday, literally last Sunday, that you need a COVID test from the day before. So before I went, I'm like, I'm not going to take any chances. Let me try to get a scheduled one to take one over there. Where shall I go? How shall I do it? Oh, it's really easy. We do this all the time. So the Scottish folks on the WhatsApp, another cloud app, by the way, put a little link here. Here's a great place. It's called Randox, randox.com. Let's look them up. Very simple. Come over here and schedule anywhere in the UK for a test. 35 pounds, basically, to get a couple of sticks up your nose. And within an hour, you will get your results. Great.
Yeah.
It's called an antigen tests for folks
Yes.
that are. All right. So I schedule it. I want to like get it out of the way so that I feel fine for that whole day that I'm reporting. So I schedule it for 7 o'clock in the morning of that day, as soon as they open. No problem. You know, I'm online. I get it set. I get a code. Again, they have an app.
Barcode. Yeah.
In that one in particular, I said, you know, how often will I do this? Maybe I'll not load the app. Folks, when you get to that, when you can do that, here's the thing: load the app, get it in there, and if your app is feel like it's taking space in your system, just take it off. And then next time you have to load it again, guess what? It'll probably remember who you are. You can sign in again, or you'll have I forgot my password. Let's get back in, all that stuff. I should have done that, but it's okay. I did an old school. I printed out because I was worried, again, with the American Airlines and everything else, that somebody's going to say, we want to see all these papers. Because one more step back. In my company, when before we travel, we actually have to take a test to prove we're okay to travel. And if I failed that test, they would have not allowed me to travel. That's how strict we are. How about that? And they gave you like a whole videos you had to watch and learn about everything. Okay, great. And one of the things they said was print out everything, even though you have apps. Print out everything so you have a stack of papers that you're always going around with. All right. By the way, no one ever looked at one piece of paper the entire trip. All right. Number one. But here, so I have this, and I said, okay, fine. I have my barcode, and it's got the QR code in there and everything else, but it's on my phone also. All right. All great and well. So I go in there and I come in the morning. I start out. Yes. Can we just do your QR code? You're done. Step right this way, sir. You know, all in Scottish accent, of course. And then I had 2 sticks up in the nose. It's welcome. It's very nice. Everyone's so friendly. Oh, by the way, there's a pub over there that has a special and all that stuff. And they're giving me tourist advice while I'm there.
Wonderful.
Sure, no problem. So all that great service, and I'm done within 5 minutes, literally within 5 minutes.
Right.
I can go have breakfast and everything else. And like 30 minutes later, my results. They come online. They're all stuff. It comes with like, click here for PDF version, or click here to upload it into your airline app. So for some airlines, click there, it goes straight like to BA or something like that. Mine was unfortunately American, so it wasn't connected. But the American Airlines, because they give you the idea, here's another thing with those apps. That's how you can check it early. All right. If you're like Southwest, and you know, like you have to like line up and you have to get those letters. And you have to like, as soon as it's ready to check in, you're like hitting that button really fast to check in.
Cattle run. Yeah.
So you're the cattle run to get in there. So if you have the app, that's the way to do it. Well, when you have a seat checking in, and there's the reason why you want to check in, because if you don't, they can give your seat to someone else. That's what happened with American. I couldn't check in because it couldn't verify my COVID information, at least at the time. BA took it immediately and said, yes, you're fine to travel. BA wouldn't let me check in until I showed that I was complying with the American Airlines stuff. So I couldn't even get on the flight to Glasgow to London unless, yeah, we're learning about Ralph's trip, but here, there's cloud stories over here. All right. So
all of this is really, the cloud is the thread that is connecting all of these pieces. I mean, that's the thing. It's underpinning everything. It's
underpinning everything. So here I am. I put the stuff in. I start filling in the forms, and it said it knew right away. So it's like, okay, it looks at it. The AI, how it's super freaking fast, because as soon as it says upload the PDF, within minutes, it said just wait, or within minutes, within a spinny, it was able to figure it out. Okay, you're fine to go to London now. All right. And now, so can I check into the American? Not yet. You're not ready. It wouldn't let me go in at all. All right. So I take this back. The one for Glasgow, it said, yes, I have your papers, but now American has to tell us if it's okay. No, I was not ready. I was not okay to get in or like check in formally. So I was really worried that in the morning I have to go to Glasgow to the airport early and bring my papers so I can get my boarding pass. What I need is a boarding pass. The boarding pass, at least a QR code to let you go through. I didn't have it that evening, at least the day before. So the next day, I'm like really concerned. I get in there. I arrive at the airport at like 6:20 in the morning, and there's a line going on forever.
Oh.
Humongous line of folks getting in. I'm going to miss my flight again. There's just no way I can get through this line and then have to go through security and go through all this stuff. So I'm asking for a little bit of help. It's like, well, is there a way to bypass this in some way? It's like the person said, use the app. I said, well, the app didn't let me go in yesterday, so I went through it and suddenly it was working. Obviously there was some latency, but it let me get in. Next thing you know, I had my pass. As long as I wasn't checking in the bag. If I was checking the bag, I would have been wiped. No way. Apparently, getting there 2 hours early was not enough. I literally would have had to get there 3 hours early to not hit that. But at the 2 hour mark, I had my pass and I had my bags, and they might tell you to check that in. Okay, you know what? I don't care. If they tell me later, that's fine, as long as I can get through. So I go through. They didn't tell me to check it in, by the way. They did tell me to check it in on the way down. But anyways, fine. Go through. There was a long line again, but it's smooth. Went through. I didn't have to show my passport anymore. They didn't ask. They simply put my pass. It looked at me, and it said, take off your glasses, and it said, pass. It did the take off your glasses thing because of that. Went through it, all that stuff. By the time I got to the plane, it was just in time. It was ready to board pretty soon. So I got there 2 hours early with all the lines. And by the way, the reason for that, because they're short-staffed, is the main reason for that. Right. But everything was automated. I didn't need to speak to a human anymore at that point. Got on the plane, but still could not log in and check into American Airlines. And that got going. So that was still going. Finally, I got to London. London, by the way, was really quick. By the way, everything again online. From my app, got myself to Gatwick Express from my app. Found my brother, and we were able to get together. We did between WhatsApp and everything else. The internet, by the way, on the Gatwick Express, fantastic, super fast, super great. Same on the Heathrow Express for the internet. Those are trains that run where there's no LTE or no service. Right. I can't believe that in the UK there's actually areas where there's no service through the cellular for some stuff. Actually, in the case of the UK, the area I was going through, there is service only if you're a customer of that cellular service, and you have to actually pay for it. It's called the 3G or something like that. But it didn't matter because on the train, they had Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Turned that on. So, by the way, folks, for folks that say, I want to be safe, I'll never use a public Wi-Fi, and in some cases, you don't have a choice. So if you're safe, practice safe. Even if you're in a public Wi-Fi, just don't do anything that's crazy. Like while I was in the public Wi-Fi, I was not trying to do any PII stuff or look at my bank account. Maybe I was using it to keep myself entertained for a while, or to use the WhatsApp to communicate to my brother, hey, I'm doing this. This is where we at. No problem. Great.
Right. Well, and you can also use a VPN, right? You can use a VPN on your phone. I
could have done that. Yes. Yeah. And that's what I didn't have. I had it on my laptop and everything else. I just didn't have it on the phone. And then that's probably my next thing on the phone that I'm going to make sure that I have. So got there, no problem. Still would not let wouldn't let me. For whatever reason, on the American side, it was saying that, okay, yes, you're in, but you're not in. What's going on? What's the problem? So I went over to the airport. I'm like, I had all my papers ready. Right. But the problem was because they changed the rule. On that weekend, the rule was changed where you don't need the test. But I already paid for it. That's why I paid 35 pounds for 2 sticks up my nose. God damn it. I'm going to enjoy the experience. So I took it. So I got a free, I got a test, I got a test, negative test that I can now show to somebody. Look, I'm negative. Hey, let's party, whatever. So I have it. I'm ready to go. So did they ask for it? No, nothing. I went to the check-in. Did they ask for any kind of papers besides my passport? Literally, just see your passport. Okay, here you are. You're checked in. Here's your papers. All done. I'm like, what happened to all the fanfare of this wasn't done? You didn't have this. Where's your papers, Mr. Rivas? And I see all these people going through and having all this trouble, and I'm all in a tizzy. I'm there early because I don't want to take chances, and everything is just smooth. And then I notice on my ticket, oh, my seat's changed. Why? Because I didn't technically speaking check in until I actually got to the check-in. And because it was less than the 24-hour period, somebody somewhere said, hey, can I have a better seat? I want a window seat and stuff like that. Can I have that? And I said, sure, you can have it. This person never checked in. Boom, gone. You have it. right? So when I got there, so this is sad. I'm like, you know what? I actually have a travel agent and everything else. We worked so hard. The poor fellow is going to get like, a little form, CRM, that's going to say, how did I do? And I'm going to have to say, you know what? You could have had the nice perfect score for that bonus, but I'm going to have to dock you now because all that work you did, and I still didn't get the seat that I want. Worse, you put me in the middle of the airplane. So here's the fun thing. I told the person at the gate in Heathrow, and they said, I said, there's somebody over there that's their job might depend on their bonus getting this here. Because sometimes it's just that one little thing. You know how that goes. And I said, yes, we understand. We're rated by all these things anyway as well. Okay. All right, fine. All fine and well. And they went there and they put me in a window seat. Well, by the door, but still,
Yeah,
it's by the door, but I always have the bathroom. Every time the bathroom's free, I know it. I'm right there. That's fine. I didn't have the front. I had sort of the front thing. I didn't have a place to put my upper bag. You know what? I'm on my way home at this point. Doesn't matter. I'm good. But again, all the cloud. Oh yeah. So you're on the airplane. No cash. Got to use the apps. You want to eat something? Go something beyond or something like that. App all the way. Went through the to the stores and everything else. And they have all the stores all clumped up before you get to any gate. Smart. You have to shop before you leave. You're going to make you shop. It's one store after the other. They said, you know what? If you haven't felt like shopping by now, you're dead. You're not a human because we just added too much stuff in front of you. But everything, all cloud, all app, the Heathrow stuff, rewards app, this app, man, holy smokes, with all the pieces. The Heathrow app, by the way, is guess what? It was done with a Power App. Low-code app. The Heathrow app is a freaking low-code app. I know why I know this, because it's a use case that Microsoft actually said, hey, at Heathrow, we did that low-code. That app you're using, that's actually came from here. It's like, what?
Very cool.
And on top of it, I was showing all that stuff. It's like, it's the power of all those pieces. And I just had to, wow. It took 20 minutes to talk that whole through. Smokes. That's the adventures of the old man from Chicago going to Scotland. And I was broadcasting it on my WhatsApp to like everyone out there. They're like, oh my God. Story.
So why did you go to Scotland? I mean, what was the deal? Why were you there? I mean,
what the heck? What was I doing in Scotland?
Yes, but what were you there for?
Indeed. Let's go see over here if I have it over here. Why the heck was I in Scotland? Let's see.
Why were you there?
I was here for this. Let me share my screen.
Inquiring minds want to know.
We're going to share. I have to be careful. This is my business laptop I'm on right now. And where's a picture of you? There you are. Raquel, we're sharing a screen. We may have to move things around a bit. Raquel's on the spot. This is my presentation, what I did.
You got some...
At the Scottish Summit.
Plaid
yes, I was in plaid, man. And if you go online and look me up on that one, in my LinkedIn or whatever, you'll see me dressed up with the official uniform for it. By the way, I got there so late I couldn't get a shirt, but I did get a nice hoodie. Actually, we got two out of it. Yeah, so this is what I did. I'm just behind the scenes of my course over here. And so, look at this. You remember, so they give you like a PowerPoint, you might notice this when you're doing conferences, they give you like a template to follow up with. These guys really went out of their way for every possible thing with the template. And so this is one of the things with the template, they give you a format and they have like a pithy saying you're supposed to have in the bottom, whatever sort of thing you want to say. I chose this one. You know what? You say time will tell. I'm so old that time told. Get it? Right? And remember, we used to put in our URL for this, URL for that. Check it out, folks. You can actually use this now. Scan this URL. You'll get my LinkedIn. You'll get our Cloud Talk link over here. You'll get the CM Pug and all that stuff all there.
Very cool.
By the way, that's another app. There's two different apps that they gave us to use for that. How do you say it? To combine your social credentials, right, online. So, by the way, this is what I talked about. Had some motivation over here. Talked about, I like this one, perceptions of an admin. Have you ever done this one? You ever see this one? I like this one. Perception of an admin. What my friends think I do. Play games. What my mom thinks I do. He's like Bill Gates. Society. Or you know who this guy is. I like this one. What my boss thinks I do. We've seen that. Or what we think you do. Yes, we're masters of the Matrix. What we really do. Actually, Larry, I bet you can totally.
Yeah, you've got to turn it off and turn it back on again.
Exactly. We're basically that's what we do. We're just flipping the switches, right?
Yeah.
We're making it work. I go through I went through like what kind of administrator you are, essentially what your job responsibility is, and if you're doing more than what's in here, chances are you need a raise. That was my subtext. Yeah. All right. So they gave us a form and everything else with all the pieces. So that's what I did. And then I come back. Oh, here's the funny thing. So I had to put this presentation together, and this is updated to the latest information from Microsoft Build, which just came out. In fact, I'll tell you how recent it is. It's so recent that when I put in the logos, those logos literally came out the week before.
Oh,
this is the freshest copies of the pictures that are in there, and I made my own version of it. Of course, now Microsoft has finally caught up and made nice little slides we can borrow, but I did it myself. I built it. Right? That's how fresh. And so all of a sudden, then I had a user group thing that was. They said, "Hey, can you do the Omaha user group? Omaha user group. What are they for? Low code? No, we're the Azure user group. Oh, those guys.
Omaha.
Omaha. So there's a lot of Azure stuff going on all over the United States. You recall before all this other Microsoft or low code stuff, there were actually cloud user groups going up left and right when the cloud was really coming up. And one of the let's just say active ones is the one in Omaha. And so I had to do that one. And let me show you that one, a little background on that one. Actually, that one I wanted to show you, Larry, because what's interesting about that is because for the first time in a while, I got to talk about the background of Azure supporting this stuff. All right. So it was like my little agenda over here where I went through and I said, all right, again, I did my old, who am I? Get everyone to understand first what low code is. That's all fine and well. Understand the Power Platform, all fine and well. But then I start going through the fact that talking to people like, say, hey, Azure M365 is SAS, the SaaS sitting on top of Azure.
Right.
You got to understand that that's where everything starts. Then I try to explain like here, well, it's all about packages, right? I'm putting a package on there so that it can be managed. Azure, you can, and I start talking about all the different services, the tie-ins for Azure.
Right.
Identity management, compute service. By the way, even these logos are recent.
Yeah, I was going to say that those do look good. They're new.
If you go online and look up the latest icons for Azure, they were updated as of build, so they have new pictures. So again,
we'll put a link down below to the official.
Yes.
Icons, not store, but the location.
There's an icon repository that you can get these from. Absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. I talk about dynamics a little bit. Then I deep dived into the pieces over here, and I'm showing, for example, here's Dataverse helping out an Azure solution over there. I'm not sure we can see that very well, but that's going through. We talk about like some of the services underneath that it's going through. The learning resources where you can learn more. A reminder, hey, by the way, Dev, everyone can get this. It turned out this was the most popular thing about the talk. The Dev program where you get your own M365 tenant, because everyone's doing stuff in Azure. We all have our Azure subscriptions. Now imagine if you can tie your Azure subscription to a Dev tenant, and you could play. That was the thing. So that was that talk right over there.
Cool.
Then that came out, and then my friend Karsten Gott came up with something. Well, he's not he's everyone's friend because one of my favorite stuff is he comes out with some really good slide stuff. He comes over here. He was explaining why people choose Dataverse and collaborative apps, but I like this slide in particular.
Oh, that's pretty. Yeah.
You see that? What's behind Dataverse? I mean, we were talking about Dataverse is that superpowered data, which is like I keep saying Alfred Pennyworth, the butler of Batman, working in it. I want to make this big here. Let's make this big just for the sake of making it big.
There we go.
Is that big enough? Hold on.
Yes.
All right. So this is Dataverse. What's behind it? And we call what this show is about is the fact that the cloud is underneath everything we're doing. This is just Dataverse. Everyone says, oh, we don't know if we'll use Dataverse because this and that. Well, here's what Dataverse is running under. So look, there's T-SQL. I was right. SQL under there. There's a REST API. No surprise.
Right.
OData. Hey, remember OData?
Yes.
OData, this data, that data. Wouldn't we all expect that there's probably got to be a freaking load balancer there somewhere?
Yeah.
I like this because this is actually, if you think about this, think about your architecture as you're building a cloud app. This is almost like a prescriptive architecture.
It is.
You're creating a data platform that's going to be managed for somebody. Your data platform is going to be so powerful that somebody's going to call it Alfred Pennyworth, the butler. You know, and somewhere in your future, you're going to be touted. All right. And how would you build such a thing? Well, perhaps you would build it.
I mean, this is, and not to disparage this or anything like this, but really, this is nothing new. I mean, Microsoft has been layering services for a long time. When you look back at reporting services, initially when reporting services came out, you had to install IIS because really reporting services is just a web app. Wait,
just a web app.
What is your point? It's just a web app.
It's just a web app. And it was not just that. It was a data-driven web app.
Yes, it was a data-driven web app. So, I mean, people that are surprised by this just haven't been paying attention.
Oh, you got it.
I love this diagram, though, because this helps, because it gets down below that app level and talks about what's below it.
Let's look at these concepts over here.
Yeah.
Right. Let's look at these concepts: compute and storage, events, extensibility. These are the core concepts we've been talking about forever now. Actually, on this show, when we talk about compute and all this stuff. So you know what? If you're going to make it prescriptive, what's underneath what we're doing? So here we go. Load balancing over there. There, look. There's our websites. There's reporting, a sandbox, the jobs handling. These are all the VMs essentially running this. What's over here? Oh, look at this. Azure SQL Elastic Pool, Azure Blob Storage. What? Blob storage? I thought this is, where do you think this is being held? Well, I like this one though. Guess what? Cosmos DB. People may be surprised. What? I thought this was SQL. It's like, hold on a second. Yeah, SQL as you know it in your little PC is that relational database running in that particular way. But SQL in the cloud cannot exist in such a way. And especially if you're going to have files and all this other stuff, you need something that has this paradigm, the Cosmos.
And Azure Cosmos DB is global and will replicate so that you have consistent data across the globe and not just in the region that the data is currently located.
There you go.
Old school SQL databases just won't work at cloud scale.
You got it. So what else is in here? Azure Cognitive Search. Well, you know, when you actually look and find something, well, you could have basic search. No, they've gone beyond that. They've gone to cognitive search. So there's the power of baby Skynet actually behind you over here and make this happen. Azure Data Lake makes a lot of sense, right? Microsoft's doing this at such a humongous, massive scale. We're not talking lakes. We're talking data oceans here at this point. Here's the extensibility. Azure Functions. Makes sense. Right. Even though we have all the low-codey stuff going on there, but underneath the covers, it's really functions, event hubs, service bus. No surprise that there's going to be service bus here. How the heck are they managing all this stuff? Webhooks. No surprise there. How about this? Kubernetes service. By the way, in build, they did announce a way to quickly, build and configure that. Well, we might cover that in a different show. I love the Kubernetes stuff that they came out with in the last piece. But check it out. SQL to SQL or to Lake and all that. Mm-hmm. This is a great graphic that just gives it almost like a prescriptive architecture for a data platform that lives in the cloud that operates at cloud galaxy scale.
Right. Well, and we say a data, but really it's any enterprise application. Once you reach a certain size, is a data application. I mean, really, that's the truth. So if you're looking at, one of the Fortune 100s, or if you're working at, one of the top 10 banks, you're going to have an application that should be at this scale, whether you're actually building it that way or not.
Yes.
That's the truth. People are a little bit myopic when they're building applications, even in this day and age, and they're building them to meet their current needs and not looking just, in the next 5 or 10 years when we really get more global. And now's the time to make those changes.
Again, to realize, especially for those that end up still having to print a paper like what I did. So I still did things because old habits, in a lot of cases. If my phone was gone completely, I would have definitely been in that crazy boat of having to work. But chances are, because again, everything's backed up into the cloud, if something happened to my phone during that time, I could probably go into a store, purchase a new iPhone, and wait for some time for all my pieces to come back in, and I'm back in the game.
That's right.
Because I didn't have like, oh my God, your phone's lost all those settings, all that work you did, your whole life is like burnt down with your house, essentially like that.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely not the case. It's like, so there are still things that are not quite clean, not quite all together over there. But that's why we have work. That's why there's still jobs. No matter what the economy is doing, this still needs to be done. In fact, I think there's been talk now. It's like the economy changing and what's going to happen to, hey, IT folks are probably going to lay people off and all that stuff. So, here, think about this. Think about this. It's going to be more so that they need you, mainly because if they're not going to be able to afford to have, like, say, people doing manual things, because that's really where a lot of the cost is, the people to do things. More likely, they're going to have to get people that are at least smart enough to automate or to, manage things and things at a much smaller scale. So that skill that you're having now for doing cloud stuff, especially if it involves scripting, automation, or let's just say configuration management, where like, I could make it work like in infrastructure of code style. I can set it up this way. So now we just push the button to make it happen. And this is not automation. This is essentially knowing how a thing should be set up. I could automate something, but I can't automate it unless I know the thing manually will work.
You can't program something to fix a problem that you don't know the solution to. You have to solve the problem and then implement that solution.
So here's the thing. Why would they? So they say, well, they're going to just automate me anyway. So they can't automate how you think. You still have to solve the problem, which means if they're in a hurry to automate you, that means they're in a hurry for you to solve the problem. And you know what happens with opportunity cost time? When you're in a hurry to do something, it costs. Say it with me. Thank you. It costs more.
There's that iron triangle, right? It's either cheap.
Yep.
Or it's fast.
Yep.
Or it's good. You pick two.
That's right.
You can only pick two of them.
You can only pick two. You're going to be on one side or the other. You can't get all three. So that means that your job is still good, because unless the problem has been solved, all right, then it's like, okay, the problem's been solved. Well, here's the thing. If you're worried about your job, look for a problem to solve. And you know what? The world has so many problems. There's no way you're not going to find a problem that can't be solved, that needs solving, I should say.
Right. So the problem has been solved in that, you go to McDonald's and you get a meal, you're full. That meal is the solution to the problem that is your hunger.
Indeed.
But in 6 hours, you're going to need another one. And businesses are the same way. And again, I don't want to conflate, weather with climate, but I will say that right now the weather for our industry is jobs, jobs, jobs. We've got well over 100 open recs right now for mid to junior to senior level people in the business, the business that I'm on. And I'm sure you're the same, Ralph. I mean,
we're in the same cases.
Can't hire enough people.
But the issue in a lot of the cases is sometimes they're looking for specific people at a specific time, or they don't need that particular, because the perception is we feel that we don't need that particular talent in this region at this particular time. And then everyone's like, oh my gosh, I got to pay for you while you're sitting there waiting for us to figure out where you go. It's like, that's the part that's hard. Right?
And we're going through those discussions right now. Well, but there's a difference between, and I don't want to say, so we use the term bench. And so I have to say that term just because that's what everyone expects and everyone hears. But I'd rather use different terms than that. But let me go ahead and talk about bench. There's two types that we really deal with. There's expected bench, right? Your project ends and you're waiting for the next project to start. That's actually okay. That's built in. Should be built into all the numbers that everyone
All
uses.
the planning and everything else should be built in,
Right.
correct?
It's inadvertent bench or unexpected bench time that we really as a company need to cut down on. And that's when projects end early. Or when there's let's just say there's a conflict of personality.
There's an event that essentially makes it finish
There's
sooner.
a triggering event that makes it finish, maybe for one, maybe for all, but maybe for just the one consultant, and that happens. I've been on projects where there were personality conflicts that were not anyone's really fault, but it was going to keep things from moving forward.
Humans will be humans, after all.
Humans will be humans, and the reason that businesses hire consulting groups is because it's really easy for a consulting group to swap those people out, right? No fault change. We're going to drop someone, put someone else in.
Much harder when it's someone that you've hired that's in your area. It becomes a much more painful stuff. And then let's just say there's an investment that you have to consider. You've hired someone, you brought them in there. You're investing in them. Truthfully, that's an investment. It's not exactly a capital resource, as they say, but it is an investment that you made. Otherwise, you just outsource it, contract it, right? It's like if you don't want to worry about it, or if you just I don't want to see it. My kid eyes don't want to see all that stuff. That's fine. That's why you pay someone to shield you from said thing. That way you can make it happen. You have that flexibility, and if you don't feel like you're going to appear cruel, that's perhaps the best way to block it, I suppose. But
the weather, right?
Yes.
But the weather right now, right? The current weather for jobs in IT is nothing but sunny. Now's the time to be moving into this market. I'm not going to talk, and we can't really talk about the climate, right? Because there's, but yeah, really, if you look back historically, even through the bust of the great bemoaning of
the two busts that came through. Yep.
Right. The pet.com internet collapse. Even through that, people had jobs. I mean, there were places for IT people. It was a contraction. It wasn't a complete bust. So,
right.
And I don't think that, at least as far as IT buying and business goes, I don't think that we're in a bubble at this point. We have other bubbles that we need to worry about, like housing, but not necessarily IT.
True enough. It's, again, the idea is, and well, here's the thing also, when folks get specialized, and this is why when we talk about cloud talk in our particular case, why are we sometimes agnostic? Why we seem to like dive into one topic or another. You know what? Some things the old guys can tell you. It's good to have that breadth in that field, because at one moment they're going to say, well, we're going to let these guys go because they're all Java programmers and they only know how to do web apps. And it's like, okay, well, all right. But hey, by the way, can you do like set up these servers here while we're waiting for that to get going? Yeah, I could do that. That's not exactly the job that I'm meant for, but I can. That's falling off the log for me. You're going to pay me to do it? Yep. Okay. That'll take care of it. In fact, a long time ago, that's how I weathered 2000. When a lot of folks in my area were like giving up, one of the big companies like simply canceled all business. So like 80% of our people in the company, because they made this bet on Java after being a Microsoft shop. They said Microsoft's not really pulling for us. We're going to bet Java all the way. I even took Java training because they were saying, "Oh, well, you better learn your Java." So again, I'm staying open, following through. But then they simply just out of the blue just canceled the project, and they literally let those folks go. What was I doing? I was doing Windows networking, Windows 2000, setting up for some of their clients and getting that going.
Right.
And using like what was the original PowerShell at the time to do some scripting with the stuff. That was actually my value add, because I'm a programmer. My value add to this engineering work was that I was automating in the original, way to make that happen. So when everyone was gone, I was left. I was like overworked, because it would have been nice if you brought one of those guys. I would have taught them. I would have mentored them. But see, I think that was a bit of they were a bit myopic at the time. They really didn't realize that some people can sometimes switch. They have that capacity. You can look back and say, well, I'm a Java programmer. I'll never be anything else. Really? Well, how did you become a Java programmer to begin with? Well, I like programming. So, but when you were doing that, Java didn't exist, or
Right.
at least it was like in its infancy. This is going back ways. So if you're like, I'm Java all the way, well, you didn't become Java all the way overnight. You built yourself up to that. If that means that you're able to do that, chances are you could be from whatever somewhere else if someone showed you the way, or gave you the incentive, or mentored you, or walked you through, or give you that chance. And in my case, I was doing scripting stuff. It's like, well, I can use the Java guy. How about if I made more scripts and I make this? I give him the framework. Here's how to do scripts, right? And he might like, oh, it's not as good as Java. That's fine, but here's the rules. This is an if statement in PowerShell versus what you're doing in Java. Oh yeah, that's too easy. They'd probably be like, with the nose, that's fine, but you have a freaking job, buddy. How about that?
So when I was training, the training that I went to do was with 20 to 26-year-olds, okay, just out of college, or
Fresh.
they've had a year, 2 years in the industry, but they're coming through a training for the company I work for now. And one of the things that we stress with them is go deep early, but then work on your breadth while you're doing it, because you have to become not really an expert, but you have to get very proficient in the technology that you're using for the client that you're at. That's your day one. That's your first year on the job. That is the most important thing that you can do.
Indeed.
But that's not all you need to do. You need to also look at, for example, half of them are Java, the other half are C#. And, this crew of people we had 18, and they become friends and they became pals. And I said, okay, stay in touch, right? You need to know your peers, because
that networking is key. And by the way, so that's something that in 2000 was not as there as it is now. So the 2000, perhaps a lot of the folks that in the contraction may not have happened if there was the concept of that, well, let's just say the union between the people, right?
Yeah.
And you know how that helps? I'll give you an example. When people know what's going on, if one company decides to, I don't know, just become rogue and not treat their employees so well, somebody will go on Glassdoor and put something, and then again and again and again. Next thing you know, well, here's the company. I wanted to contract, and you just contracted, sure enough, but you did so by burning your bridges. You'd not just lose the people that you cleaned yourself off from, but you lost everybody else. Worse, you now have no pipeline to bring in the fresh talent you probably thought you needed, instead of those deadbeats you got rid of or whatever. You can't get any more folks because you burned the bridge. And why? Because now these people are connected. So you should have played nice. And back in those days when some of those companies went through their stuff, the ones that went out of business, that's one thing. But the ones that stayed in business, some of them, they were not so nice. In fact, some of them we're discovering now. Back then, they were not so nice. And now today, we're hearing about them.
All right, yeah.
A few of them. I'm not going to mention who they are, but yep. They're
but if we look,
community.
Yeah. If we look at what skills junior developers are really, it doesn't matter what level of career you're at, right? You need to have depth in some subjects. The more the more senior you become, the more of those spikes you need into the different technologies.
Right.
But it's really, if you think about those spikes as, in a drawing, right? They're little roots that you're putting down.
Right.
We're really not talking about how deep you get for the most part, especially if you're a consultant. You want to talk about the area that you cover, and that's both depth and breadth, right? You need to get depth in some subjects to cross a threshold to kind of advance your career.
Yes.
You need that depth, but you also need the area. You need to have breadth across the many different languages. So yeah, you were talking about Java, C#, JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ralph, you've been doing JavaScript and promoting it and teaching it internally.
I was a VB
for
guy
a long time.
forever. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean I was doing that, and the VB script and C# wasn't even the first one. VB script was the thing of choice for me, and it worked just as well. So even
Right.
when C# was coming up the line, and after a while, I realized that with C#, I could, let's just say, it was easier to talk to other developers that came in from the C side of things, for that
Right.
matter, that were also in the Java side of things, because those were actually more closer to each other than, say,
Right.
the VB side. The VB side
Yeah.
was really its own
VB.NET
world.
VB.NET was a clean language. I mean,
It was great.
it was definitely it had a lot of things that it did better than C#. But I mean, you're right. The majority of the coders that were moving in and kind of taking that mantle of C# were coming from
Right.
C, C++, and Java.
Right. And again, shortest path between 2 points is a straight line. Why? You say, well, it's because it's VB. You should do it this way. But why? And
Right.
the VB programmer who did .NET, when we were doing .NET when it first came out, the whole point, and this is, and Microsoft developers, this is like, I think the early days from Scott Hanselman and all the rest of those guys, were trying to explain it's not about the language in front, C# or whatever.
Right.
It's about the framework that we're talking to. The framework has, talk to me this way, and you will get this result. I don't care how you talk to me this way, but talk to me this way. So they made us focus on the end game, to the point where, like, okay, this over here, how you talk to it is just another pattern. Well, here's pattern A to do it. Here's pattern B, does the same thing. Here's pattern C, does the same thing. What's common about them? The commands are all the same. In fact,
Right.
the syntax for those specific commands are literally the same for all of them.
Yeah.
What's different? An if statement is different. What?
Yeah.
Are you going to
You have
quibble?
curly
That's a quibble.
brackets, or you have semicolons, or who cares, right?
Right.
If you structure your solution, in the same way. You implement it using the same tools.
Exactly. Data is going to be here. You talk to it at this time. Data needs to wait for this. It's going to happen this way. The front end is going to have this on the front. That's going to happen. Oh, it's writing HTML anyway. All that language, and you're still freaking writing HTML.
Yeah.
So what? Oh, I have a C# command that writes HTML. Yeah, it's called write to. Well, who do you think wrote that? Underneath the cover is a library of somebody who wrote it. It's already, you could be writing that, but they just abstracted for you, so you think it's C# writing it, and it's not. Because if you knew what it was writing it, then you'd be like, oh, I don't need that. I can just do it myself, right? Yes, you can. But again, it's the case. That's why low code is important. The idea of, like, do what's already done and then save the hard work for the pieces, all right? And if you know you need the flexibility, then don't wait. But if you have something that's packaged and it fits, it's appropriate, it's the way to go. But how would you know that if your mind was closed and said it's all going to be in
we have to do it in this one language. There's only one, and we have
one language, one way, one framework, one all that. One ring does not rule them all. And remember, when they did that, it was thrown in Mordor, and what happened? All right.
Yeah,
yep. Sure. There's at the
that
end.
wasn't the solution to a problem. That was the cause of a problem.
Exactly. It turns out that was the cause when you tried to make your one way. You notice that every time someone wanted to make the one standard to rule them all, they all seem to always fall apart. This is actually why there seems to be that thing where, like, the humans want to have the one that's going to be the savior and the one everything. And then all of a sudden they say, get there. It's all of a sudden, no, that's not going to work. We need flexibility. No, we can't do it. Flexible. Oh, wait, we're too flexible. Let's come back in. It's almost like history is like that, right? It's like the expansion, contraction.
Expand and contract.
You know, you have your totalitarianism stages, and then come back to pure democracy. And then when you get too far to the edges, you got the rubber band that tries to snap you back one way or the other. But then that's the way of things. We have to think that whatever that big spot, that if we want a cross section, that big spot in the middle, that flexibility is where you have to be. If you want to live here where most things happen, you need to be flexible, you need to be open, you need to have the ability to become in debt. Go into the depth of things, I should say.
Right.
As necessary, because you can't be just pure jack. If you're pure jack, you're on the surface, and if this is moving water, you'll be like dragged all over the place. But if you're here again in this cloud, with the setting up those routes, you can basically, like an anchor. Okay, I'm on the sea. I need to now work over here. Drop anchor, kapoof. If you can't find the ground, or your anchor is not holding, you can't stay there. You're gonna be unsuccessful in staying there. going to be
Right.
Washington Shore.
That depth gives you the foundation to build all of the other structures that you need on top of it, for
Indeed.
sure. All right, so we are speaking of depth and all that. We're at the end of our time. We're at the bottom of the hour.
We got to think. Now that things are settling down. Time to bring in the guests again.
Yes,
We're
sir.
going through. I want to go back and watch the interview with the steward again, because actually that stuff still. I think I watched it once.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and I'm like, I learned something after that. I'm like, why didn't I remember that from here before? I feel like I'm going back to that one again. So that's my call out for a past show.
I do have I have got our GitHub pages going. I'm in the process of converting everything over, and we're going to be using Jekyll rather than Hugo, but we will have Jekyll pages up.
Well, better than Hyde.
Yes, better than Hyde.
Jekyll better than Hyde.
And we'll be able to change our DNS entry to point to it, and we'll be good to go.
All right, wonderful.
And,
so, folks, we're looking for subscribers.
29 subscribers, I think, is what we're at now. So
we're you consider yourself in the ground floor if you subscribe now, even though we've been doing this for a while. We're trying to get there. And again, the whole point is not so much that we're not monetizing anything or doing any of that stuff. Frankly, no, we're not. The idea is when folks start seeing this kind of stuff being looked for, they're probably going to do more of it. You want to find more of this on the internet? Then how do we say it? Show the support to those places on the internet that are showing you what you want to see, right? Because then there will be more of it. That's usually the way it works.
And if we missed, let us know in the comments. We're flexible, as we were just saying, right? We want to go deep into subjects. If there's something that you need to, hear more about, let us know that. But we also want to cover the breadth. So
yeah, and we're finally old enough that we actually know people that we can bring in. You never know. We might know somebody. Hey, I know a guy, know a gal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Bring him in.
Have a good weekend, everyone. See you next week.
Raquel, sign us out, please.
Thank you.